Hi, everyone. Welcome to another 10 to 20 with Tanya. I'm Tanya, and today we're talking about an American lifestyle and how it relates to food. Everything food, from what we eat, what we buy, how we buy it, all of those kinds of things, and maybe even some trends and that kind of thing. So I see that we have some people joining me live. Let me know where you're listening from, and welcome to everyone, live or on the recording. Today, I want to start by telling you and answering some of the common questions I get about food as it relates to the United States and the people of the United States. And then I'd like to answer your questions. So if you're listening and you would like me to answer a question, put your question in the comments and be sure to put a question mark so that I can see your question among all of the other things. You could also write it or type it in all capital letters or all caps. So, welcome from Rio, Mexico, Vietnam, Peru, Russia, Italy, Germany. Oh my goodness, we have people here from all over the world, and that's awesome. So one of the questions I get often is, would I make a video? Espy loves to bark on Saturdays because there are lots of tourists here in my town. Espy, come here. And so she loves to bark at the people, the tourists that are walking by my window. And then when I call her, here she is, she comes right over. Lie down, lie down. Good girl. So when people ask me about how we buy our food, I haven't traveled to, a lot of places, but I've traveled to Europe. So a couple of different countries in Europe. I've traveled to Asia. I've traveled to South America. So I haven't been to every continent, but I have been to a few. And the way we buy food is similar to people around the world. One of the things I think that is very common in the United States is that different people do different things. And of course, we have the huge supermarkets. So, a supermarket is a big grocery store. The main store that we buy food at, we call it the grocery store. And here in my town, this is a very small town. We don't have any grocery stores that are the chains that we see everywhere else. We do have a very small chain market. So when we say market, we mean it's a smaller store. It has most things, not everything, but most things you'd like to buy. And then we have a local market, which is not a chain. So a chain restaurant or store or grocery store, they have several stores with the same name owned by the same company. Um, so that's just a little bit of a what's the word I want? Of background, but the word I'm looking for is foundation. Okay. Uh, I purchase the majority of my food locally, which means I buy it here in my own town. A lot of people who live in this town drive to a bigger town or city to purchase their food because there's more variety, so there's more choices, and usually it's less expensive. However, because you have to drive a long way, the next closest store is about 40-45 minutes away. It You have to buy gas for your car and spend more time. So I purchase most of my food locally. I also belong to a food co-op, which is where lots of people get food from the same source. This particular one is food that is donations or leftovers. Leftovers, a little different than how we would describe leftovers from dinner, which are very common. When you create a meal, make a meal, and you eat, and then you have food that is extra, we call that leftovers. And this is similar when stores have food, if they have too much, or it is almost to go out of date. In other words, they need to sell it before it's not good. This group of people gets all that food and distributes it among the group. And I get a lot of food that way as well. In addition, because I know people who belong to other co-ops or they have gardens or they have places they purchase food and they get a lot for a very good price, I sometimes receive food from people in my community. So if you saw the picture of the thumbnail that went with this video, so the picture that you clicked on to watch this video, I was holding a green vegetable. It's actually a cauliflower. So I'm going to write that here, cauliflower, which is typically or usually white. In fact, I've never seen cauliflower that wasn't white. This is the first time I've seen this type of cauliflower that's like a bright green, and more pointed. The shape of it was more pointed and it was quite delicious. So that's a little bit about how I purchase my food. I think that Americans in general go to a grocery store or a supermarket to buy food, or even a store that is common called Costco or Sam's Club, which is like a huge store, and you have to have a membership. You purchase a membership, and then you can go into this store and you can buy things. They're usually a little less expensive. Um, Sometimes I think you spend more money because you buy more, because you have to buy in bulk. Let me write that here. Buy in bulk, meaning that you can't just buy a little thing of laundry soap. You have to buy a huge one or three of them all together. Um, I often buy my toilet paper this way because you buy a lot of toilet paper and you pay less money. Um, I personally don't have a membership to Costco or Sam's Club, but it's very common. So often when I have a friend who's going, I ask them to buy toilet paper or sometimes things that I use a lot of, for instance, cans of beans, or something like that. So that's a common, those are some common things, but of course, there are a lot of people who do things differently. For example, I know in New York City, it's more similar to, I know, the way it is in different countries, maybe in Europe or even South America, where you purchase your groceries or what you're going to make, the food you're going to prepare each day or every other day. This happens in big cities that have fresh markets, but it's more common, I think, overall, not everyone, but overall, the people will go grocery shopping once a week or twice a week, and buy the food they need for a whole week or even 2 weeks, depending on where you live. Okay, so that's one thing I wanted to talk about. Let me look and see if there's any questions so far, and then I wanna talk about the common things that Americans eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and what's the difference between dinner and supper, which is the evening meal. So I can see that there are a few questions already. Welcome everyone who is listening. Let me see here. Okay, Maria asks a question that's a little off topic. So, Maria, if you will put it in the comments after I have the recording, I can answer you directly. So, I'm looking for questions that are on the topic of food. Tanya says, another Tanya, not me. Do you like dill for cooking? I do. Dill is a spice or actually an herb. Um, I don't cook with it often, but I do enjoy it. I especially enjoy it for eggs. A friend of mine taught me to put dill in eggs. I also really like it for chicken, or if I'm having a salad of some sort. So the most common use of dill for me in my life is for dill pickles. When I was a child, we would make our own pickles and we would use dill. But I do purchase dill pickles at the store, Not as commonly as I used to. In other words, I don't always have them like I did when I was a child, but I like dill, especially in the summer. It's kind of a refreshing herb. And the other question, is it hard to find it in green groceries? If you're asking about dill, no, it's not hard to find it. Some stores have it more than others. Here on the mountain where I live, it's a little more difficult to find, and when you do, it's much more expensive. But when I go off the mountain or into a larger town, it's very easy to find. I see that De Todo Un Poco is cooking right now, so this is the perfect thing to listen to while you're cooking. Another question, is it possible to buy vegetables in greenhouses? I haven't personally been to a greenhouse where I buy vegetables, but yes, I know that there are a lot of people who grow vegetables in the United States in a greenhouse, and then you can purchase them either at a store or a market, but also at what we call farmers markets. I'll put it here, farmers markets, which are small local markets, usually outdoors. Sometimes they're in a maybe not an indoor space, but a covered space. We have a local farmers market here. They're very common in California and in Arizona, where I've lived most of my life. They're common all over the country. Uh, but and another thing you might hear, a garden stand is similar, where just one person maybe has the food they've grown in a greenhouse or in their garden, and they're selling it to individuals. Uh, yes, the topic is food. Today, the topic is food. I'm taking all questions about food, buying food, groceries, how we get it, how we prepare it, those kind of things. And I see somebody answered that. Thank you. Why do American people enjoy more hamburgers than salad or vegetables? You know, this is an interesting question. The people that I know enjoy vegetables and salads a lot, and in fact, hardly ever eat a hamburger. But I know that in general, we're kind of known for eating a lot of fast food and restaurant food, and I think that that's because it's so easy and convenient. I think that's the main thing. But a lot of people are trying to be more healthy, and most of the people I know are either trying to be more healthy or they have been making healthy choices for a long time, and they would choose a vegetable or a salad or something healthy before they would eat something that's not as healthy, like a hamburger or pizza or something like that. All right. Yes, one person says they were in Miami and all the food was processed. That's very common, especially in restaurants and in grocery stores. I cook most of my own food. I try to avoid processed food, but there is a lot of food that is processed, even if it's processed just a little. It's a little bit challenging to avoid, but of course you can avoid it. All right, let's see what else we have here. Usually the farmers markets don't have meat. Um, so one person was asking about that, but you can find meat at farmers markets. Farmers who grow their own animals and process it themselves and sell fresh meat at the market. It's not as common, I know, as in other countries because there are a lot of restrictions here. Which means that there are a lot of laws and rules that require certain ways that the meat is taken care of, so that we're sure that it's healthy and fresh, and that if you eat it, you won't be sick. All right, let's see. Mariana says people from the West Coast are healthier. As a question, she says, I guess. I would say, I'm going to see if I can get rid of this little bit of light here. It helped a little. There's a little bit of light there, but I think it'll be okay. Um, I know that in California is known as being very health conscious. It doesn't mean everyone here is healthy. Pardon me, but I think that generally speaking, the people in the middle of the country are more meat and potato people is how we say it, meat and potato, because they're farmers and they grow animals and they grow vegetables, and that might be what they eat more of. And on the coast, they tend to be a little more progressive and looking for healthier alternatives and things like that. I'm just gonna see if I can fix this curtain there and see. I think that did it. Yay. Okay. Do you use some idioms with beans, like to spill the beans or to spill the tea? Yes. I was trying to think. Yes, the reason I was thinking about that is we typically in the United States do not say someone is full of beans. That is, as far as I know, that's an idiom from England, but it's very common to say spill the beans or spill the tea if you mean tell me what you know, tell me the secret, tell me the gossip, spill the beans, spill the tea. We have lots and lots of idioms around food. So maybe I could do a whole video on that if everyone is interested in that. Connie asked, is it popular or common to share or get leftovers in your community? Yes, very, very common and popular. I never have experience in my country is interesting. It also reflects the love of your community. Where I live is a very small town, so it's even more common here. It is there are of course people in the city who do it, especially if that was common in their childhood or in their early lifetime. But yes, sharing food, leftovers, or even it's common, for instance, to make a big pot of soup and share it with everyone before it's leftovers. So yes, that is a common thing. What is your favorite food? Maria asks, what is my favorite food? I think a lot of people know that I love sugar, and ice cream is one of my favorite foods on earth. I wouldn't consider it a nutritional food. I was gonna do this because it's not healthy. Well, I don't need to do that. It's not healthy. Um, I have stopped eating sugar for now. Currently, I don't eat sugar because I was just eating way too much sugar. So my favorite food that you might eat for dinner or for a meal is probably Mexican food in general. I love tacos and burritos and enchilada. I love Mexican food, and I did not grow up eating Mexican food. I grew up in Nebraska, Kansas, Colorado, Oklahoma, that area, and there was very little Mexican food there at the time. It's more available now. Maybe that's why I like it. I don't know. But I love Mexican and I love Italian food too. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit and then I'll come back to some of these questions about what Americans eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So, very typical, I think the most typical as far as what we are thought of eating for breakfast. Hey, Espy, come here. Come here. Look what I have for you. I have a treat for Espy. Treat is something that, like ice cream, is a treat for me. Lie down. Um, Breakfast, I think the most common breakfast is bacon, eggs, and some sort of toast. Could be biscuits, could be some sort of bread. It could even be pancakes or waffles, something that is bread like, or even a roll, a cinnamon roll, a Danish, anything that is bread like. But as far as, like, what we might eat daily, most Americans are very busy, and so it's common to eat something quick, like a yogurt with granola or a bowl of cereal or a piece of fruit or a piece of toast or maybe toast and a piece of fruit or something like that. It's very, very common. As far as lunch goes, most Americans eat a lighter lunch or a smaller lunch than dinner. So maybe a sandwich or soup or a salad. Often they eat out at a restaurant or they bring their lunch to work. I typically eat leftovers for lunch or something very similar, very not similar, very small. Um, Even if it's just something like instead of making a sandwich, I might have a slice of roast beef with cheese and some spinach on it and roll it up and eat it, or usually leftovers. Leftovers are very common for me, and maybe a half a piece of fruit. Um, but like most things in the United States, this varies a lot from person to person. Um, and then for dinner, which is our evening meal, it's more common to have a larger dinner. Now, let me say, when I was growing up, all of my relatives are farmers or were farmers, and it's very common to have a large meal at lunch. And then they might call that dinner. The lunch meal might be called dinner, especially if it's on Sunday. Sunday dinner is often at lunchtime or during the middle of the day at noon, 12 noon. Um, but most of the people I know now eat a smaller lunch and a larger dinner. Of course, that changes, like I said, from person to person. And dinner is typically the evening dinner is typically thought of it to be hot food, maybe something like uh, chicken and a vegetable, maybe a salad and a potato or rice or something like that. Americans enjoy other types of food like Chinese food, Italian food, Mexican food, like I said. Pasta is very common here in different ways, even if it's not necessarily Italian. In fact, most of the ethnic food that we eat is not necessarily very authentic, meaning it may not be like it is in that country, although we do have a lot of authentic restaurants from other countries because we have a lot of people who have immigrated here or moved here for some reason or another. And I love to eat at authentic restaurants that have authentic food from other countries. Vietnamese food, Thai food, all types of Asian food, all types of Middle Eastern food, um, even European food. I haven't eaten a lot of African food, but I would love to try it. South American food, Central American food. So that is a little bit about that. The difference between dinner and supper can be synonymous. Some people call the evening meal dinner, some people call it supper. Some people call the noon meal dinner, but that's not as common. But usually, if you say supper, you mean the evening meal. And usually, not always, if you say dinner, you mean the evening meal. There's a whole conversation about that too. So let me see if we have any questions about that or other things that I missed. Okay, I saw that question. Would you tell me about a main dish and side dish in America? I was just talking to another student about this. I would say that we don't have a lot of food that originated in the United States because most people who live here immigrated here at some time or their ancestors did. But the United States is kind of known for fried chicken. I don't see very many people here where I live eating fried chicken, partly I think because it's fried. But chicken dishes in general are very common, and people are making new things, either combining with Italian things they saw or other dishes they saw, and then putting, their own spin on it. So this is spinning, or you can spin something like this. If you put your own spin on something, it means you make it your own. You make it your own way. To put your own spin on it. Okay, let's see if there's any other questions. We're almost out of time. Roma says some people in Europe say that for Americans, it's much harder to eat healthy food because this kind of groceries is so expensive or something. But I think everything depends on strangely enough, the healthier processed foods are usually more expensive. But generally speaking, buying fresh fruit and vegetables and even sometimes meat is less expensive if you buy it and make it yourself like that. But yes, you can buy a lot of processed foods for a lot for less a lot I was gonna say a lot less money, but I think it would be better to say, uh, inexpensively, inexpensively. One person says there's nothing more delicious than spicy food. I love spicy food. It doesn't love me as much. When we say something doesn't love us, we mean maybe we don't feel well when we eat it. Uh, One person says in Japan, the price of food is going up. How about in your country? The price of food last year was astronomical. When I say astronomical, I just mean very high. In February, after the war in Ukraine started, the prices went up so fast and so high. It was really unbelievable. I'm much more careful about what I buy because prices are still very, very high, and especially on some things. And this is part of the reason that I am a member of this group where I can share food and we can get big amounts of food for less money and share it. Uh, have I tried Arabic food? Not specifically. I haven't tried Arabic food specifically. I don't find restaurants uh, for Arabic foods here in the United States, and I've never traveled to that part of the world. So, what about seafood? I have searched some people that don't like this food. In my country, a lot of people prefer seafood. What country are you from, Pilar? Um, yes, seafood is very popular here, especially on the coast, the East Coast and the West Coast, but all over the country. I enjoy seafood, but I don't eat it very regularly because it's expensive and it's difficult to get fresh seafood here in the mountains. And if you do get fresh seafood, it's expensive, more expensive. I like to eat seafood because I enjoy it, and also because it's, I think, very healthy depending on what you eat and how you eat it. So that's a good question. Yes, I live with a dog. My dog, Espy. In fact, I have a video coming out about Espy in the next week or two. Uh, One person asks about the price of milk because in Canada, the price went up high. Yes, the price of milk here, butter, all of those kinds of things have been very high. Prices of eggs right now is astronomical, like I said. Recent studies say pizza is rather healthy for breakfast. I did not know that. Let's see. I see some other questions. Do you know the Brazilian feijoada? No, I don't. I've not heard of it, but I like to try different types of food. Do you call a person who likes to eat a lot a hearty eater? Yes, we do. A hearty eater or a big eater, or they have a hearty appetite. Good question. Or a glutton. A glutton is someone who eats too much, more than is good. Maybe they eat more than their share. More than their share means partly it should be other people's food. All right. It's time for me to wrap up or finish this live. I have other things I have to do today. Um, but I'm going to answer these last few questions. Do Americans still make some jam or preserves, something for winter? Yes. In fact, one of my favorite YouTube channels is a girl who preserves a lot of food. I should say a woman. And there are a lot of people who preserve food and make jams and jellies. I occasionally preserve some food when I can. I don't have a lot of space, but when I can, I like to. Have you ever tasted Korean food? Yes, I have. If you have, do you remember the name of that food? No, I don't. Sorry, I'm not good with the names of Asian foods outside of Chinese food. Chinese food is very popular in the United States, and other Asian foods are just becoming more popular in the last 10 or 15 years. So, and let's see. Feijoada, I'm sure I'm not saying that correctly, is based on beans and pork. Oh, it sounds very good. Do American families like to sit around the table and eat together? Yes, I think it's not as common as it used to be. My family did this when my children were young. I did this when I was a child. I know there are a lot of families who don't do it or they sit around the TV, unfortunately, but yeah, they do. Do people like sipping tea or coffee or just swallow it? I think most Americans do everything fast, or not everything, but a lot of things fast. But yes, sipping maybe sometimes. All right. It's so good to see everyone here. Thank you so much for participating by giving me your questions. If I missed your question, please put it in the comments over at the recording, which will get posted on my YouTube page very shortly. And I will look forward to seeing you here next week at the same time. And if you are looking for, or you know a woman who is looking to be more fluent, Espy, we Espy, come here. We still have Espy, come. Look at me. Look at me. We still have space available. Sorry. Oh, I see. There is a dog outside, and she loves to bark at other dogs. I was just saying we do have space in our Women's Speak Better program. The link is below here and on most of my other videos, or you can find it on my website, along with a lot more information about our classes and English Coach 3Ts. So, again, thank you. And I look forward to seeing all of you live next week or in the comments on our video coming on Tuesday. See you there. Bye bye.